Here's an update on striper fishing in the canal by End Eddie Doherty, a retired Massachusetts court clerk magistrate appointed by the late Governor A. Paul Cellucci, author of 7 Miles After Sundown about surf casting the Cape Cod Canal for striped bass.
So we have another beautiful morning here on the east end of the Cape Cod Canal. We've got a dropping west tide behind me, and the west tide is bringing in fresh seawater from Cape Cod Bay and hopefully some striped bass with it. So the low tide is a minus low today in a couple of hours. That's controlled by the moon, and a minus low is up to 1 foot below normal. So the current, we call it tides, east tide, west tide. It's really east current, west current, but they're caused by the rising and fall of the bays on each end. So the Cape Cod Bay on one end and Buzzards Bay on the other. When one goes up, the other one goes down, and that causes the tide to either go east or west and then to switch the other way. So fishing has been good in the canal. It hasn't been great. It's been hot or cold like pretty much always, but some guys have done well. Hammer and Jack Barton, John Doble, Paulie the Painter Gravina, Jimmy Kells Kelly all caught fish. Every day Al Mazzico reeled in a 39-inch striper on a topwater bite, which is the most exciting way to catch a striper, probably any fish. I was fishing on a day when there were no breaks at all, and so I was making blind casts. We call them blind casts because you're not casting towards the fish, you can't see the fish. And a 30-pound striper came charging off the bottom and exploded on my lure and was splashing and thrashing like throwing water like a 4-year-old in the tub and really fighting hard. And so I finally brought that fish to the rocks. It weighed 30 pounds, but it was 45 inches. And I caught that with a Guppy Jobo Jr., a white color. It's my favorite color in topwater. And that's made by a local guy, Wayne Hess, Guppy Lures, and it's a terrific lure. It's a great topwater lure. I really like it, and I've done very well with it. So the new moon has the new moon and the both moons each month have a positive effect on the on fishing. Mostly 3 days before and 3 days after, as a general rule of thumb. And this year, this beginning of the month, being of July, guys did pretty well right around the time of the new moon, the full moon, excuse me. And Breaking Bob Ware caught a 20-pound striper with his white spook, and Chuck Coca-Cola Kid Franks landed a 31 and 33-inch in heavy rain in a 3-hour blitz. That was a lot of guys were catching fish in, mostly slots, but some up to 39 inches. Just as a reminder, a slot is 28 inches, so less than 31. That's what a keeper is nowadays. Vinny the Patriot Rosada caught a 32-inch on a white pencil. The fish were very fussy that day. I was fishing a little bit over from Vinny, about 40 of us together. Everybody's casting into breaking fish. The fish were boiling. The water was boiling from these fish, and it would last for just a few minutes, and the fish would move on in the tide, and 15 minutes later another small school would come along. So Vinny was the only one that caught a striper out of that group, but I cast my white rocket, striper gear rocket, into the boiling water, and but the fish were just turning their nose up at my lure and almost everybody else's. And then as the current moved my lure away from the school, a bluefish was hanging on the edge. A 10-pound bluefish came up, and he hooked he got hooked on my tail hook of my white striper gear rocket. So that was quite a fight. He was dancing on the surface like a toppin' and doing aerial display, and so I finally brought that 10-pound bluefish in, and it measured out to 36 inches, and it was great on the grill. Tasty fish. So the Magic Swimmer was created by Patrick Sebile, who I think is the world's greatest fisherman. I don't know how anybody else could claim that title because he holds world records. He's a great guy. He's actually in both of my books that I wrote. And he's just a really nice guy, and he started fishing when he was like 4 years old. But the magic swimmer that he created is one of the most popular lures around. It's 3 pieces, and it undulates through the water. It looks very realistic. Doesn't cast that great, but but a lot of times you don't have to cast that far because the fish are hanging on the first shelf right in front of you, and so it's a really well proven lure. But Patrick, it comes with 3 hooks, 3 treble hooks, and Patrick told me years ago to take the back 2 hooks off, because I think he created it for muskie. And striped bass always attack their prey from the head first, and so you really don't need all those other hooks. You just leave the belly hook on, and it works out better that way, because if you do take it with all the hooks, if you keep them all on, they get in all different parts of the bass, and it becomes a mess. So I did what he told me, and it's worked good for me. And that magic swimmer is used by a lot of different guys. Slapshot Scotty Ewell caught a 35-inch striper with his white magic swimmer on an east flood tide. Kenny Pigpen Nevins had 7 fish to his credit, up to 38 inches on a rising east tide with a white magic swimmer. Donnie Hawkeye Willis did very well one day with his white magic swimmer, and the fish he caught were up to 40 inches long, and which is a really nice fish. But the most interesting story with the magic swimmer was Zach Attack Baker from Sagamore Beach. Now, Zach fishes quite a bit, and he uses a Blue Mac magic swimmer that has 2 hooks on it. And so he's throwing that out there one day, and he gets hit really hard. And he thought that he might have had a 40-pound striper on, and he fought it to fruition, and it turned out that it wasn't a 40-pounder, it was 2 20-pounders, and he had 1 on each hook, on each treble hook. So that doesn't happen every day. I was throwing my white guppy Jobo Jr. one day, and I caught 2 fish, a 30-inch and a 33-inch, both very fat fish. And so naturally I released the 33-inch, but I cleaned the slot and delivered it to my youngest daughter, Christine, for her family table. Christine was a registered nurse at Boston Children's Hospital. Now she's one of the school nurses in Lakeville, closer to home. So her family enjoyed fish tacos, compliments of the Cape Cod Canal. And of course, those are our grandchildren. But that day, like I mentioned, I had released a 33-inch, and so Tim Hollywood Petrarca was fishing down tide from me, and so not very far away, and around the same time. And so Timmy also caught a fat 33-inch. So I said, Hollywood, you might have caught the same fish I just released, because you were down tide from me. And so we had a memorial ceremony for Wild Bill Lytle, a certified canal rat, a great guy. He passed away, and we went to pole 245 on the Cape side. Bill was from Pecasset, and 245 was his favorite pole. So we went over there, to quite a few of us, and paid our respects, and threw a lure in the water and had a little ceremony for Bill. He was a great guy. I had written about him years ago, a story that one of the problems, we don't have many problems in the canal. It's a happy place, but one of the problems is when somebody, especially a new person, comes up close to you, you could have tangled lines. So you try to explain that, snagged lines, and you try to tell people that so that they'll move away. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Well, Wild Bill, he looked like a mountain man. He had a heart of gold, but he's a big guy, and he had long hair and a big bushy beard. And so he's standing there, and this guy is too close to him, and Bill's politely asking him to move, and the guy's just not moving. So Bill, now bear in mind, I just told you, he looks like a mountain man. Bill looks at this guy and he says, "Don't make me go back to prison." Well, that guy started running down the service road, and he was heading east, and I think that was the last we ever saw of him. Rest in peace, Wild Bill. So one day I saw dozens of dolphins here going through the canal. They came in from the east end, from Cape Cod Bay, and they swam the length of the canal, and they were going back and forth all the way, all 7 miles. And then I read in the paper the next day that there was a stranding in Wellfleet in shallow water, so it might have been the same school, I don't know. So I just want to tell you a story about, there was a famous movie star who ordered a custom boat to be made in Italy. and it was a 45-foot Super America. It was made by a company in Italy called Riva. And he ordered this boat at Italy to be delivered to America, and he unfortunately never got out in the boat because he died of cancer, a long battle with cancer. Very famous actor. And so my cousin John Cornish bought the boat. John owns Atlantic Boats in Wareham and Stonebridge Marina in Onset. And a great guy, very generous guy. And so I used to work with John actually when we were kids at Gulf Hill and Mattapoisett scooping ice cream. It's called Oxford Creamery now. But anyways, John bought the boat, and we fished off the Elizabeth Islands. It was 45 feet long, so it had a lot of room in the stern, and it was a great boat to fish off. And John used to take it down the Cape Cod Canal and everywhere. But anyway, it was, like I said, it was custom made for a famous movie star, and that guy had he produced iconic films and became a real legend, achieved international fame. The movie star's name, he was born Marion Morrison, but the world knew him as John Wayne. So we fished off John Wayne's boat. That was a great time. So my tip of the month is that when you're riding a canal bike, I have a bell on my handlebars, so if somebody's in front of me, I ring the bell so they know I'm coming, because if you don't have a horn or a bell or something, you should yell in front of you on your left or something, because sometimes guys are on their bike riding slow and they're daydreaming, and they might cut in front of you inadvertently, so you want to make sure that people know that you're coming. So just make some kind of noise with a bell or something else. So until next time, catch a big one.
Want your nice canal catch mentioned? Email the details to eastendeddie789@yahoo.com.